right, Frank, your time here. We've got a couple of GM candidacies that are, searches are still going on out there. Anaheim and Chicago, they've been in flux for a long time. Are either of those situations getting closer to the finish line?
Yeah, things are really heating up, Mike, with the Anaheim Ducks and their GM search. And I believe that the man to beat, the guy that's the favorite at this point, is Pat Verbeek, the assistant general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. He's been Steve Yzerman's right-hand man for the last number of years, dating back to his time with the Tampa Bay Lightning as well, helping put in place that roster that went on to win back-to-back Stanley Cups. Pat Verbeek having his second interview with the Anaheim Ducks and their search committee on Sunday. There's one other mystery finalist that's in the mix that interviewed on Monday evening. And all signs point to this moving pretty rapidly. The Anaheim Ducks could have a decision made and negotiated out a contract with the winner in the next number of days. So I would think certainly before the end of the week, provided that things continue on as planned. Pat Verbeek certainly has been impressive. And then you look at the Chicago Blackhawks. They have begun interviews this week, and the team announcing yesterday that 3 former Hawks players are going to be part of the search committee to help discuss and deliberate candidates, much in the same way that Paul Kariya and Scott Niedermayer have been involved in Anaheim. You're going to have, in this case, Eddie Olczyk, as well as Marian Hossa and Patrick Sharp that are part of the Blackhawks search committee. So Anaheim very close, I think probably sometime late next week on the back half of the All-Star break for the Chicago Blackhawks.
I like the groupthink that's going on here, bringing in old players and legendary players in some organizations. That's definitely helpful. People that have the pulse of the organization. Now, in November, Doug Wilson took a medical leave of absence from the Sharks, and haven't heard much more on it. Is there any update on that situation?
Well, not much of an update in terms of Doug Wilson and his health. I think people were hoping, and certainly around the Sharks organization, that this would be just a temporary leave of absence, that Doug Wilson could gather up some strength and be back in the chair in short order. We're now more than 2 months since that announcement was made back on November 26th. And at this point, Joe Will, their assistant general manager, is still overseeing day-to-day operations of the team. He's in communication with Doug Wilson on the regular. I think we're all hoping and wishing Doug Wilson the best. He's been all class in his NHL career as both a player and general manager. Not back yet, and I think there are some question marks in terms of how the Sharks will proceed as it gets closer to the March 21st deadline. But at this point, no change. Joe Will continues to run the Sharks. And like I said, we hope for the best for Doug Wilson.
Definitely. Tossed a bit of shade over at Jeff Petry earlier in the show. And this is a guy who really came on the scene. I noticed him playing against when I was with the Ottawa Senators, 2019. He's blowing one-timers past my collarbones. I thought, wow, this guy is way better than I ever realized. Well, now he looks like he may be on the trading block in Montreal. So what could the market potentially be out there for Jeff Petry?
Yeah, I've seen lots of different commentary over the last number of days, people trying to size this up. And I think the market for Jeff Petry is actually a little bit better than people might realize. They look at the term remaining 3 years at $6.25 million. And just talking to some in the scouting community that have watched Jeff Petry closely this season, obviously it's been a disaster in terms of production. But there's certainly some personal off-ice issues going on that their new GM, Kent Hughes, alluded to. His family, Petry's family, had moved back to the U.S. because of the coronavirus restrictions. And Mike, I guess you'd be able to speak to it better than me, but that certainly can impact a player. This is a guy that had 170 points over the last 4 seasons. And so just in talking to some of those scouts, they said, Jeff Petry didn't wake up this season and all of a sudden forget how to play hockey. So I think there's some hope that Jeff Petry can rebound. They're thinking that probably a fair market value in terms of what that contract might look like as a right shot moving forward, given the productivity in years past, is somewhere closer to 3 years times $5 million. So there may need to be some money that the Montreal Canadiens eat or another contract that goes back their way that might alleviate some of that. But I just want to read you a quick message from a director of pro scouting about Jeff Petry this season. Still effective at driving play, can still skate, competes well, relatively durable. Offense can be dependent on teammates. They haven't scored much this season, but all signs point to the same guy not scoring in the traditional rotational stints, but still very much positively contributing to his team. So yeah, it's going to be something that we'll have to wait and see. But the Canadiens are working closely with Petry's camp as well to try and facilitate a move. He's going to be one of those guys that I think, a team that can afford the cap hit is willing to take a chance and say, hey, this guy, perhaps with a change of scenery, can get back to the level that he was at.
And maybe a U.S.-based team. A happy player is a better player. I know that firsthand. You got to be happy in life before you can really succeed on the ice. Talk about some people that are looking forward to things. All eyes are going to be on Owen Power, Matty Beniers at the Olympics, but there are a handful of other young players that are going to get some major exposure out of this. So who else amongst the young players headed to the Olympics have generated NHL interest?
Yeah, so it's going to be really interesting for 3 undrafted free agents. And one that certainly rises to the top of the list will be Strauss Mann, the expected starter for Team USA. He has been lights out in Skellefteå this season, 23 years old, 920 save percentage. Teams are always looking for goalies, Mike. He had a couple really, really good years at the University of Michigan as well. So Strauss Mann is one undrafted free agent. Ben Myers, the captain 23 at the University of Minnesota. He's been a point per game player this year for the Gophers. And Mark McLaughlin is the other one, the captain at Boston College. He's 22, so a year younger than both Mann and Myers. He's got 18 goals in 25 games for the Eagles this season. 3 undrafted free agents that will have some prime time viewing from scouts and those around the hockey community in terms of winning an NHL job. And I think Mann in particular, I don't think it's going to be very long before we see him, even though his path has been a little bit untraditional in terms of being on NHL radar in short order.
Frank, good job as always, man. It's been another edition of Icebreakers presented by and delivered by DoorDash. You were on it today, man. Good work.